The beginning of progress is getting clarity about what it is you want, really want, and then being clear where you are. And later on, you got to be clear where you are so you know the gap. Because the dynamic tension of knowing what you want versus where you are will make a part of you want to snap into what's true. What's the second action step you got to take? Your goal is crush, destroy, annihilate, and replace any story of limitation. In other words, break the pattern of the limiting story you have in your life that's gotten in the way of your relationship, or your body being where you want to be, or your finances being where you are, or your business, or your level of happiness. Because the only thing keeping you from getting what you want is the story you keep telling yourself about why you don't have it. I'm gonna say that again. The only thing keeping you from getting what you really want in this world is the story you keep telling yourself about why you don't have it, or why you can't have it, or why it's not here yet. The story has got to change. And by the way, most people's stories create suffering. What is suffering? It's pain that just seems to always be there. Like anxiety or fear, I'm not enough, all that comes about. But jot this down if you would. Suffering never comes from the facts of your life. We don't suffer because of what's actually happened, the facts in our life. Suffering is in the perception of those facts. Jot it down if you would. All suffering is not in the facts of my life. The facts aren't what's making me suffer. It's my perception of the facts that are making me suffer. You get it? My perception. So I'll give you an example. Let's say if your mother had died and you're feeling sad, it may be a natural experience. But if you're still broken up 6 months or a year from now, you are not suffering because your mother died. You are suffering because your perception is she shouldn't have, as if you know what the universe or God has in store. And the beautiful thing is when you understand this, see, the reason people keep suffering is they're like, I can't because this happened to my life, this happened to my child, this happened to my parents, this happened to me. But it doesn't matter. It's the perception, it's not what happened. We all have the happenings, we all have those horrible situations, and yet, if we can develop that core belief that people live around me day and night, it becomes a part of you, it's just their nature. And that understanding that life is always happening for me, not to me. Even though it looks like life's happening to me, it's actually a lesson. There's something there that's happening for me that's gonna make life better. How many of you have had an experience in your life where something happened that was so painful, so terrible, you'd never wanna go through it again in your lifetime? And you sure wouldn't want anybody you love to go through it. But 5 years afterwards, 10 years, 2 years later, you went, I never want to go through that again, but I understand why God or the universe gave it to me because it made me so much stronger, or it made me care so much, or it made me come up with new answers that have now made my life better. It seemed so horrible, but years later you saw the higher meaning. So often out of those pains, we create suffering, but what makes us keep suffering is limiting beliefs. I'm not enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I'm not young. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not funny enough. I'm not handsome enough. I've tried everything. Nothing works. If you succeed, people attack you. God's punishing me. All those different beliefs, all these things. I've got a question for you. How many of you out there have beliefs that intellectually you know better? You know it's bull. But emotionally, they still grab you or pull you back. So you've got to get rid of those. And it's so hard because you're in it. So the way you change is you've got to change the conditioning. You can't just change your intellect because you probably intellectually already know these beliefs are BS. But we got to rewire them. You have to crush, destroy, annihilate, replace, after you annihilate these stories with the truth that sets you free, with a higher purpose. And when that happens, everything changes in your relationship, your business, your finances, and your life. That's what happened to me. That's how I went from 38 pounds heavier than I am now and never gaining it back, and totally broke, walking rooms feeling alone and lonely and 100 people around me, feeling sorry for myself, to transforming everything, including my business, my economics, and everything else. The way I did it was not strategy. It was first the beliefs, which is story, and the state. But I wired it, and that's why I'm here today. It's not enough to know. Knowing is not enough. It's all about execution, which means conditioning. So that after a while, you don't have to think about it. You just do it, you just do it, you just do it. So it's critical you find a way to do this. And I'll tell you philosophically, Jim Rohn taught me a philosophy that changed my life. It was really simple. was talking about things I want to achieve and do and make happen. He goes, Tony, if you want an extraordinary life, you have to adopt a philosophy. And at that time, I didn't think philosophy mattered. I was more interested in strategy. How do you do it, right? And strategies are invaluable. Like I said, I could save you 10 years with the right strategy in your business or your personal life. I do it all the time. But the philosophy is going to determine whether you act on it or not. And the philosophy, he called it the philosophy of stretching. Jot it down, the philosophy of stretching. What is the philosophy of stretching? He said, Tony, it's really simple. If you find yourself saying, I can't do something, I can't do it because I don't have the time, I can't do it, I don't have the money, I can't do it because I don't have the resources, I can't do it because I don't know the right people. Anytime you start finding yourself, you say, I can't do something, and especially if it's really hard, then you must do it and you must take action immediately. Even if you don't know how, even if you don't think it's possible, you've got to develop a habit that says, if I can't, then I must. And I said, well, Jim, I said, does that mean if I can't jump off a cliff, that I must? He said, don't be stupid, right? He said, what I mean is if there's something that you could do right now that can make you better, make you stronger, make you more alive, make you happy, make you healthier, something you do to make your business better, something you do to make your family better, but it's really uncomfortable or you don't think you have the time or the money, the resources, he said, you've got to train yourself that when you say I can't, then you say I must and you do something immediately. I remember saying to him, I said, well, that doesn't sound like a very secure life. He said, if you want security, go to prison. He said, if you want freedom, you got to push yourself and do the things that are uncomfortable and stop allowing yourself to make excuses. And even if you don't know how, if you just commit to do it, the universe moves to those that commit. If you want to take the island, burn your boats. Because if there's no going back, it's amazing how human beings find an answer that'll shift them and make things happen. There's 3 P's that you gotta annihilate, crush, or destroy if they're getting in the way of your progress in a relationship, or your career, or your happiness, or your health. These are the 3 P's that make learned helplessness. Number 1, you think the problem is permanent. Once you've had enough disappointment, sometimes your brain doesn't want to get disappointed, so it's a permanent problem. Please write down, no problem is permanent, only your soul is permanent. Nothing's forever. Everything changes, everything eventually ends, and something new begins. That's part of life. Those are the seasons of life. But when you start believing the problem's permanent, it is, because it's self-fulfilling. The second P that keeps people in learned helplessness so they don't change, this belief's got to be annihilated, broken through, and that it's pervasive. That means that because my relationship's not great, my whole life is horrible. Then you're forgetting you do have health, or you do have friends, or you do have a job, or you do have whatever. I can breathe. Or my finances are messed up, so my whole life's over. It's not true. It's not permanent, it's not pervasive. And the third one is we think the problem is personal. There's something wrong with me. And if you start believing that, it becomes self-fulfilling. You give up. See, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not smart enough, I always screw it up. So those 3 P's gotta be destroyed.